What's up, my beer bros? Maine-iac here with Week 12 Power Rankings. Now, I'm going to make this as quick as I possibly can. We'll start up at number 32, the Browns. They can't do anything right. They never do anything right. What's new with them? At number 31, we have the Cardinals dropping one spot. That's more of a result of a different game, but we'll get to that then. I don't like what Gabbert's doing in Arizona. He's not playing bad, but he's not playing well. Not that well, at least. At number 30, we have the San Francisco 49ers. I believe Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start for them this week. With that uncertainty of what he can necessarily do in that system, I can't really righteously put them up higher. They did drop one spot. Their defense is playing not that good, and their offense hasn't been playing that well either. It's kind of a shame because they're wasting Carlos Hyde's monster talents by being so bad. And speaking of that, there's another team that's almost just as bad, the Indianapolis Colts. I like what Jacoby Brissett's doing for the team. Offensive line's horrible, though. Frank Gore's getting old, and the wide receiving core outside of T.Y. Hilton is absolute trash, and that defense is playing okay, but they need to play a little better because they got to carry this offense if they want to win. Up next at number 28, we have the Chicago Bears. Their offense looks about just as good as the Raiders' defense. Let's just put it that way. I like what Jordan Howard is doing on the offense, but he needs a lot more help from Mitch Trubisky, who's proving, so far, to me at least, to be a bust. I mean, he still has a lot of potential. It's just his rookie year, so struggles are to be expected, especially with an offense that bad. But still, their defense carries them, but not high enough. And at number 27, we have the New York Giants moving up 4 spots after their win against the Chiefs. I like what their defense did. I'm thinking maybe they turned it around just a little bit. Maybe Ben McAdoo got him motivated with that speech. Who knows? We'll see if it continues this week, but they do jump up 4 spots because they forced Alex Smith into 2 interceptions and even Kelsey into an interception. So how do you do that? I don't know, but that deserves a jump right there in its own because usually Alex Smith doesn't make too many mistakes. So respect there, and their offense is doing just enough to complement the defense. At number 26, we have the Miami Dolphins dropping 5 spots after a terrible loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, this one was scheduled for week 1, but it turned out that the Dolphins are absolute booty. I like the combination of Kenyon Drake and Damien Williams, but the quarterback situation scares me. If they had Tannehill, I think they'd be so much better. Jay Cutler did suffer a concussion, so that does hurt them, in my opinion. And their defense, I don't know why, they're just not playing defense at all. I don't like a defense that plays complementary to the offense, especially when they can't execute that well. Next at number 25, I give the Bucs a little credit. They did beat the Miami Dolphins, and Fitzpatrick is proving to play nice football this year. He's actually getting the ball to O.J. Howard, which is vital. He's doing better than Winston did, which is crazy and saying. I don't know how long that's going to continue. Their defense is playing better, even with all the injuries, so they move up 3 spots, but I don't know if they'll ever move much higher because, like I said, they have a lot of injuries on this team. Next up, we have the Green Bay Packers dropping 2 spots to number 24. The Ravens defense completely embarrassed Brett Hundley in that game. He looked like a rookie, and he looked like a rookie. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that he played so bad. It was a good defense, but he needs to play better to keep the Packers at least afloat until Rodgers comes back, if he does. What concerns me the most about the Packers, and the reason why they dropped, isn't Hundley, though. It's the injuries to the running backs and to the defense. I don't know if the Packers are good enough to overcome these injuries, especially with how they've been playing as of late. So, Hundley, I wish you the best. You're going to need it. Flying in at number 23, we have the New York Jets set to take off. They are an interesting team, to say the least. Their defense with Jamal Adams and Marcus May, I believe is his name, are playing solid football. I like their run defense. Even after trading Sheldon Richardson, they're not playing absolutely terrible. They're playing bad, but not absolutely terrible. McCown's doing quite well, I believe, even with a stable of receivers that not many people would know. Robbie Anderson is proving to be playing a wide receiver 1, but I think he's a solid wide receiver 2 in most systems. I think if this team's going to improve, they just need solid play all around. They don't have many superstars, or they don't really have any superstars, so as long as they play solid all around, they might be able to compete for that wild card. But It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough considering who they have on their roster. At number 22, we have the Cincinnati Bengals with Andy Dalton. They're moving up 3 spots actually to 22, so congratulations to them. Their offensive line is playing microcosms better, just a little bit better, and that seems to be enough to give Andy Dalton enough time to make moves, because he's been playing his heart out for this team, and it's showing. He's doing well. He's getting the ball to AJ Green, which he needs. I'm looking for Mixon and Ross to do a little more in this offense. It's kind of disappointing how little they've done lately, but the Bengals defense is definitely holding them together enough. They definitely stand a chance of that wild card. If they can rattle off just a few more wins in a row, they should be playoff bound. At number 21, we have the Oakland Las Vegas Raiders, who just fired their defensive coordinator. I'm dropping them a couple spots because their defense couldn't stop Josh McCown if he was blindfolded and throwing with his foot. That's how bad their defense has been playing lately. Even with the All-Star or Pro Bowler, All-Pro Khalil Mack, it's embarrassing to see a defense that bad. I've never saw in my life a Ray Lewis defense that was that bad. And I don't know. He's making a difference, but for some reason he's not making a difference. I don't know if he's leading that defense or if he's trying to motivate them, or if the Raiders secondary is just that awful. And as for the offense, Carr is constantly making mistakes. Cooper is having a hugely disappointing year. Crabtree's trying to step up, but as long as Cooper's not stepping up, there's only so much Crabtree can do. Jared Cook has been a bright spot for this offense, but other than that, I don't know. This team sucks. This team's awful. Speaking of 2 teams that are just awful, at number 20 we have the Denver Broncos dropping 2 spots just as well. There's not much to say about this team. They're on to their 3rd starting quarterback, yet, according to Vance Joseph, their starting quarterback isn't the issue. That's astounding in itself. Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders are, or have been for a while, one of the best 1-2 combinations at wide receiver. But they got almost nothing at tight end. They got a terrible offensive line. Their running backs are hugely disappointing, even though C.J. Anderson started the year so well. I hope he bounces back. I like C.J. Anderson. But their defense, the no-fly zone, has been letting everyone fly. Tom Brady flew. Carson Wentz flew. Carson Wentz joined the Mile High Club when he played Denver. That's how bad they played. But I look for them to bounce back. There's only so much of an ass-whooping Aqib Talib and Chris Harris will take before they just go out of their mind and play crazy. And they can still do that. Aqib Talib and Chris Harris are dogs. And you piss off a dog, and that dog gonna bite. And I'm looking for them to bite pretty soon. At number 19, we have the Dallas Cowboys. I don't want to say this because I don't like the Cowboys personally, but I'm not going to let this interfere. They dropped 5 spots. Main reason is 2 weeks ago, I gave them credit. I thought it was just a bad game on a limited week, not knowing that they'd start a new left tackle or who necessarily it'd be. Dak Prescott got sacked 8 times. I gave him some credit, and I shouldn't have, because the next week, Dak followed it up by 3 interceptions. He was pressured a lot. He couldn't overcome that pressure, and they got a tough schedule up ahead, especially against the pass rush of the Los Angeles Chargers this week. And Dez isn't playing like Dez. I saw an analyst, I don't remember their name, and I apologize, that said Dez isn't even playing like a top 25 wide receiver, and I have to wholeheartedly agree. And secondly, that defense is not a defense, especially when they miss Sean Lee. Honestly, they're playing so bad, I think Jason Garrett's time is almost up, because they need a coach, I'm not saying like Bill Belichick, who can coach a next man up philosophy and not just rely on superstars to carry the team. It's not a way to win, because people get injured all the time. We're going to speed things up here because we just left the basement. Number 18, we have the Los Angeles Chargers moving up 2 spots. I liked what I saw from Phillip Rivers. He played well. Keenan Allen played really well in that game. I do apologize. I can't remember the name of the second running back, but he played really well. I believe he's a rookie, and their defense is playing good football. I'm not going to say great football, but they're playing good football. They forced Nathan Peterman into 5 interceptions. But was that a side effect of the Chargers defense playing well, or was that just Peterman playing bad? That I do not know. But they do move up 2 spots to number 18. At number 17, we have the Washington Redskins. So many injuries. It's kind of sad. I feel so bad that Thompson fractured his fibula, but I believe that with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, the Redskins do remain middle of the pack at least. He always gives them a chance to win, which is nice. But I don't. He probably won't even be a Redskin at the end of the year. And if they don't have him, then look for them to join probably the Browns next year at the bottom. Next 2 spots are quite interesting, with the Bills dropping 1 spot. After such a tough loss with 5 interceptions thrown by Peterman, I was thinking of dropping them more, but when the news got announced that Tyrod Taylor is starting for the Buffalo Bills, I decided not to, because the Tyrod Taylor-led Bulls have a chance to win every game because Tyrod has good mobility, he has a good arm, he does make mistakes, but he plays complementary football to LaShawn McCoy. And in that Bills' current offense, that is what you need. Starting Peterman was a mistake, but they're starting Taylor again, so I look for them to rebound at least a little bit. Granted, they do have 2 games coming up against the New England Patriots, which could decide if they make the wild card or not. Their defense is playing bad football, but if their offense can not have 5 turnovers again, their defense should play a little better, and it should be interesting because they are still in the wild card hunt. Speaking of wild card hunt, we have the Baltimore Ravens gaining 8 spots to number 15. Such a drastic change so late in the season. I'm aware of that, but one reason is Danny Woodhead's getting healthy, or he's back from IR. He played in the last game. I believe that opens up another dimension for the Baltimore Ravens because they have a true receiving back, which granted Collins wasn't completely bad at, but Woodhead opens up the game more to maybe run a 2-back set, maybe throw one out wide, and Woodhead is a tough matchup. Granted, after having so many injuries, how is he still 100%? Who knows? Their defense is playing lights out football again, just like they did at the beginning of the year. So I look for them to put a stranglehold in this wild card berth in the next upcoming weeks. Eventually, they could be a top 10 team, but right now they're 15th, holding the 6th seed. They are an interesting team. Now, honestly, I struggled. Number 14 with the Houston Texans moving up 3 spots. I did struggle with this, but that offense, even with Tom Savage at quarterback, it kind of scares me because DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller are playing great football this year. DeAndre Hopkins always plays good football, no matter who he plays, no matter who he has at quarterback. I look for them to stay middle of the pack right now, but I don't think there's too much more of a ceiling for them. They're struggling all around, but they're holding it together just a little bit. Maybe it's duct taped right now, but I have no idea. At number 13, we have the Tennessee Titans dropping 4 spots. They got mollywopped by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not going to drop them too much more because, like I said, they got mollywopped by the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are one of the best teams in the league. I don't know how you bounce back or like what game plan you have after Mark Mariota threw 4 interceptions and got sacked 5 times. It's going to be tough, especially when now the Jags have a good positioning on the division. They still have a wild card spot, but overall this team does worry me. They have a 6-4 record with a negative point differential, which does not bode well for the future considering their strength of schedule is going to be challenging. Up next, we have 2 teams that had disappointing losses, but I didn't drop them too much just because of who's below them. I don't think can really challenge them. We have the number 12 Kansas City Chiefs dropped 1 spot after a tough loss to the horrible Giants. But every team, at least to me, is due for a bad game. I think that was just a bad offensive game plan and a bad matchup. Seattle's run defense plays well enough that was a bad matchup for the Kareem Hunt. Alex Smith had 2 interceptions. Kelsey had 1. But I don't think that's a performance we're going to see on a week-to-week basis. So I look for them to turn around. Their defense is playing well. They limited the Giants to not much at all. I look for them to bounce back pretty soon, so that's why they didn't get dropped much more. At number 11, we have the Seattle Seahawks coming off a tough loss to the Atlanta Falcons. They're a team that could either gain in the next few weeks or drop steadily in the next few weeks. They're without Cliff Averill since week 4 or 5. They're without Cam Chancellor now, and they're without Richard Sherman. All three injuries together are almost crippling. They still have Earl Thomas. Jeremy Lane's playing well. Sheldon Richardson's playing well. They did just release Dwight Freeney, which is confusing. But they have a plan, I believe, and if Pete Carroll can stop making numbskull decisions from the Super Bowl to last week, the Seattle Seahawks should hold on to the wild card berth. But, a couple more losses, and they could be eliminated from playoff contention just with tiebreakers and how the other team schedules are going on. And that kind of nerves me a little bit. At number 10 and 9, we have a couple of risers in the Detroit Lions moving up 3 spots to number 10. I liked what they did last week. Granted, they beat a Bears team off a missed field goal, but their defense played good football. Matthew Stafford is playing good. He usually plays solid football. Doesn't deserve to be paid as much as he does, but that's for another time. Amir Abdullah is stepping up a little bit. They need more help from their running game, though. I like Golden Tate and Marvin Jones. Golden Tate is playing like Golden Tate, and that's the kind of football I like to see. Their defense is playing better as of late, but they need to play even better if the Lions are going to have hopes for the playoffs and for the championship, or at least NFC championship at the least. With the defense in its current state, they might make it wild card round, and that'd be about it. At number 9, we have the Atlanta Falcons, always also moving up 3 spots. I apologize, guys, doing these power rankings. If I don't drink every now and then, doing all this talking really dries out my throat. But Falcons moved up 3 spots. They had an impressive win. Questionable decision as of late. I'm going to talk about this for a second. The defender choosing to lay on top of the Seattle Seahawks player for 3 to 4 seconds, really costing the Seattle Seahawks 6 to 7 to maybe even 8 seconds of clock time, which the Seattle Seahawks could have ran another play, got closer. But maybe it was strategy. They played a good game. They contained Russell Wilson. But even with all those injuries to the Seattle defense, Matt Ryan was only able to do so much. And Julio Jones, I believe they said so far this year, 1 touchdown. He needs to play more of a number 1 wide receiver, but they're still one of the better teams in the league. But going up against any of the top 8 teams, I believe the Falcons lose just because of who they have been this year. Because these top 8 teams, there's something dangerous about them, and I'm going to get into that. Hanging solid at number 8, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're coming off a good game. Their defense is playing fantastic football lately. Their defense scares me, honestly. A.J. Bowie, Jalen Ramsey, one of the best combos in the league. Then you have the front 7 led by Calais Campbell, one of the best defensive linemen in the league. Paul Posluszny, I believe he's still linebacking there. I don't keep up with the linebackers there, though. He's playing good. The thing that's holding them back from being higher than 8th is their offense. Blake Bortles, so inconsistent. It plays terrible in the fourth quarter. But I believe they have the potential to beat any of these teams in the top 7 if things went just right. And if Bortles is steady enough, the Jaguars could make it to the Super Bowl. And the Jaguars Super Bowl seemed pretty unrealistic at the beginning of the year, to be honest. At number 7, we have the Carolina Panthers. At the beginning of the year, I did question Cam Newton a little bit. His running game is back. He doesn't seem to play as scared as he did last year. There's still some concerns with me, though, about how he handles losses, and that could affect him coming late into the year if they do lose a couple of games, because he doesn't play the same after a loss, which is just weird. Christian McCaffrey's playing well in the receiving game. The running game still struggles if you take Cam Newton out of the equation. Stewart does seem to be picking up a little better. Their defense is playing well, but one thing that concerns me the most about the Panthers is the injury to Samuel, and how will the other receivers make up for it, because where they did trade away Kelvin Benjamin, who also looks to be hurt. They're without Samuel now. It's going to be interesting. Olsen should be back, though, so look for that to be a factor in the upcoming weeks. Hopefully Greg Olsen can be Greg Olsen of old. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Rams dropping 3 spots to number 6. It was tough moving them down. They're a great defense and a great offense, but I think, let's say if you're a team like the Jaguars or a team like the Minnesota Vikings, someone with a really good defense, The Rams are extremely beatable. They scored off the opening possession on a touchdown and did nothing after. So the groundwork has been laid out to at least contain the Rams offense, even if you don't have the star power that the Vikings have on defense. And the holes on their defense kind of look a little bit more open after the loss to the Vikings. What concerns me the most about the Rams and why they dropped 2 spots instead of why they dropped 3 spots instead of 2, I should say, is the loss of Robert Woods. I think he might be out for the rest of the year. I don't know, or just a few weeks. I'm hoping just a couple of weeks because Woods was tearing it up in LA, and I don't know exactly how Jared Goff is going to do without possibly his number one wide receiver. At number 5, we have the Minnesota Vikings, who I believe Case Keenum has proved he's the starting quarterback. He's done well enough to be the starting quarterback and have his chance to close out the season as the starting quarterback. Granted, the Vikings, I believe, don't have a quarterback under the roster for this year. So it's going to be interesting. Do they re-sign Keenum? Because I don't believe that they re-sign Keenum and Bridgewater to at least contracts they deserve. Granted, if Bridgewater takes a smaller contract, it'll probably be out of loyalty and the fact that he hasn't played so long that he wants to prove himself. He might sign a one-year deal. That's what I'm picturing, a one-year deal for the Vikings. I like what Latavius Murray and McKinnon are providing for the Vikings, our offense that has lost Dalvin Cook, which is probably the biggest factor in their season so far. That I thought the loss of Dalvin Cook would be more crippling, but it's proving not to be. Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen are probably the best 1-2 wide receiver combo in the league. I'd probably even rank them ahead of Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster, but it's very debatable at this point. The difference between those two teams is the defense. I believe the Vikings have the better defense, but the Vikings do not have a better running back. The Vikings are a solid team, and they're definitely going to be considered Super Bowl contenders. Moving up 1 spot each, at number 4, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Antonio Brown, 3 touchdowns. He's back to being Antonio Brown. 10 receptions, 144 yards. Big Ben played solid football. But I still don't know if Big Ben on the road can be as consistent as normal. That does concern me quite a little bit. Their defense is stepping up, but it's only a matter of time before they figure out if the loss of Joe Hayden will be more of an impact than they originally planned. TJ Watt's playing well on the defensive line. I like what they're doing. To me, it looks like this offense can be kind of a chameleon kind of offense because you don't know from week to week if they're going to rely more on Le'Veon Bell running, Le'Veon Bell receiving, the threat of Antonio Brown, and lately they've been utilizing Jesse James a lot better, which could be a difference maker. Look for these guys to be favorites to at least make it to the AFC Championship game in the AFC. It should definitely be interesting. At number 3, we have the New Orleans Saints coming off a 8-game win streak. They struggled mightily against the Washington Redskins, and that game was probably more of a result of the Redskins losing necessarily than it was of the Saints winning. But they won. Their offense is playing well. Kamara and Ingram are the best 1-2 punch at running back in the league right now. The best. No other 2 running backs, not even Le'Veon Bell and D'Angelo Williams of last year, are nearly as good as them. Kamara, probably a steal of the draft. Okafor's injury on the defense is going to hurt, but their defense plays solid football. It's almost bend but don't break kind of football, and I do like it as long as they can keep opponents scoring down. But they have Drew Brees at quarterback who can and will outscore you if you give him the chance. If the Saints do suffer more injuries, or not more injuries, if they do suffer from the Okafor injury, it will be evident. They play a tough game this week against the Rams. This could actually probably decide a lot in the playoff seedings, because if the Saints win, they get a couple game lead on the Rams, and it's most likely going to be the Rams and Seahawks fighting for the 3rd and 4th seed, or 4th seed, I should say. And it might supplement the Saints into at least the top 3 seed, because they'll have a couple tiebreakers over the NFC West. The Saints also have a tough schedule coming up though, but with a win this week and a Falcons Panthers loss, they probably increase their chances exponentially of locking up the division. And finally, at the top 2 teams in the league stay steady, at least for me for the last few weeks. The Patriots crushed the Raiders. It wasn't even about the Raiders being bad on defense. Their offense got proved to get some, or the defense proved to get some key turnovers. The tipped ball interception, you have the fumble near the goal line. It's that thing about the Patriots over the last few years that's mesmerized me, even as a Patriots fan, or even if I wasn't a Patriots fan, I should say. They force teams to beat themselves. If you look at the Denver game, they forced the Denver special teams into mistakes, and that's what cost Denver the game. They forced the Raiders' offense into just enough mistakes, and that's what cost the Raiders the game. If you look at it, it was 14-0 during that fumble. If the player would have just got down with some time left, Raiders could have scored, made it 14-7 going into the second half. The energy probably would have been different in the second half, but instead they got the turnover, gave the Patriots the ball back, and they kicked a 62-yard field goal to make it 17-0. And it's that interesting chemistry in the Patriots defense that rates them so highly for me. And they are a complete chameleon team to me. You never know exactly what their offense is going to do, and you never know exactly what their defense is going to do. But one thing's consistent. You have Tom Brady, who can exploit you with Gronkowski. He can exploit you with Brandon Cooks. He can exploit you with Amendola on third down. Or as recent as the Super Bowl, he can exploit you with the stable of receiving running backs. You have the scat back, Dion Lewis, who's fast and speedy. And then you have James White, who is elusive. He can break a tackle as well as anyone in the backfield on a catch. And then you have Burkhead, who can catch the ball and plow through somebody. I like this team, and you have the GOAT on your offense. You have Tom Brady, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You always have a chance to beat anybody. To me, they're favorites to make it to the Super Bowl. Granted, they can still lose to the Steelers. They can still lose to the Jaguars defense. But there's, to me, favorites in the AFC. Then at number 1, you have the one quarterback that is probably pushing Brady the hardest for MVP consideration, and rightfully so, honestly. He's playing well. Carson Wentz, 23 touchdowns, I believe, and 5 interceptions, something like that. Good statistics. He hasn't thrown for as many yards as Brady, but he's playing consistent. Last week, he did struggle, and that does cause some concerns for me. He threw barely over 50%, or completed barely over 50% of his passes, but I'm chalking that up more of a bad game. He has a good stable of receivers. Alshon Jeffrey's playing good football. I think they got to sign him to an extension. He is a good complement to Carson Wentz and what he does. And then you have that running back stable of Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount, just 2 power backs. I believe, honestly, that's the difference right now between the Steelers and Patriots, is that stable of running backs. While the Patriots are more of a receiving threat, that power, if you can just run it down someone's throat, you're going to be hard to beat. And that's what, to me, makes the Eagles Super Bowl favorites as of now. And their defense is playing good. Their offensive line, even losing Peters, is playing great football. Their defense with Fletcher Cox is playing phenomenal football. One of the best defenses in the league. Even with Carson Wentz having an okay game like he had last week, they still dominate. It should be interesting to see if they lose again later on in the season, who they lose to and why. And if they don't, then it should be interesting to see if these Eagles can make the Super Bowl and play in Minnesota. It's going to be definitely an interesting season from here on out. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.